I really enjoyed the time we spent together about how do we spend less and raise more, and appreciate each and every one of you working with us. You know, it's hard to believe just 12 months ago, we introduced 6 new products.
And we really appreciate everyone who worked with us throughout the spring and summer at running these new products and helping us learn the things that we needed to do to polish those and bring them to you ready to go for this next season.
So let's just take a few minutes and talk about what we learned and the updates and the changes we made for the spring of 2019. You know, Tim, I think about question of all the products we introduced last summer, this one by far has had the greatest impact for growers all across the Corn Belt. And what we're talking about here is a 360 Bandit, a very simple approach to coming in and retrofitting your planter so we can put nitrogen on when planting. And when that planter makes its first pass, to be able to come in and have 2 bands of nitrogen, 3 inches on each side of the seed and about 3/4 of an inch deep underneath the surface, has had some really exciting results, as most of you have already seen. So Tim, let's just talk through the simplicity of it and how easy it mounts. I know you and I worked really hard that we didn't add much length, and so we only have about 5 inches here. So talk us through, when you come and have a planter, how does it look when we start to incorporate Bandit and nitrogen into your system?
As we studied the problem of how to get nitrogen on a planter, we really looked at a lot of different areas on the row unit and concluded very quickly that this middle portion of the row unit is the right place to put on nitrogen. It's the area in the row unit where we're not going to cause any other kind of problems, whether it's your depth control system out on the front or your closing system on the rear. By being mounted here in the middle, we're completely independent from any of those other important aspects of your row unit operation. We're applying nitrogen on both sides of the row, as you described. And one of the keys to that is starting with a disc that's going to cut the soil surface open and give us the ability to place the liquid consistently under the ground. One of the keys to the design is that we're carrying that liquid under control all the way into the soil. And we use a hose guide that's right here alongside each disc that's going to give us that ability to guide the liquid down into the trench. So we understand the importance of maintaining consistent seeding depth. And that's why we've designed the Bandit with a joint that allows the discs and hose guide to flex over any kind of obstacle you might run into. That could be a rock that's made its way through the row unit and we want to bounce up and over that, or it could just be consistently hard ground that for a moment in time would affect seeding depth. So as we've looked at the design, we've made it so that this disc isn't going to be able to affect the other aspects of the row unit. The other thing we've done is we've made this spring adjustable. So in the case of no-till conditions, versus if you're consistently conventional, you have the ability to adjust the average spring force that we're applying to be able to make sure your Bandit's set up the best for your operation. So like you mentioned, where we're mounted only adds 5 inches of length. And so this row unit is still very short for transport. And as we go around curves, this disc is far enough away and tucked up short in this row unit so it's never going to get close to the seed trench and cause any kind of damage.
So Tim, as we started working on Bandit, you know, over the years, as we've invented things, we've always had a saying, no matter what, we do no harm to the seed itself. And I think that's the beauty of what we've designed here. By being, you know, having the camber that we have on these discs, we never bring dry dirt in on top of the seed itself and collapse this seed trench, which is a huge factor in getting a good ear count. And the fact that we're only 3/4 of an inch under the ground, we let the dilution of moisture bring that nitrogen down, which is a real plus. And so we don't have a lot of additional downforce required with the Bandit system to get nitrogen in. So you add all those things up, and we're looking at all the different yield response we've had this year in our plots. This one gets Dad's motor running pretty hard. Let's talk a little bit about the 360 drag chain. Over the years of planting in many different types of planting environments, I have found the chain to be a tremendous asset. Depending upon the environment that we're working in and the soil conditions, it'll cover up a ton of mistakes for us. And so we wanted to get something out that's extremely simple, but very, very effective. So Tim, talk us through what the 360 chain kit is going to entail and what it's going to look like on the row unit.
We wanted to offer one kit that's very flexible depending on whatever type of closing system you're running. So no matter the closing wheels of your choice, we have the ability to mount a chain behind those in a really simple way. We're mounting the chain bracket off the closing wheel bolt itself, which for any type of solid wheel like we see here, a rubber or a cast wheel, we really like the short mounting point and the simplicity of mounting off this bolt that's already on this closing system. That gives the ability for this chain to flex and work behind this row unit to go ahead and seal off the surface of the soil. We've also designed it to be slightly wider than you would typically find with the chain, which is going to give us the working width we want when we're running the 360 Bandit. We've also innovated a new idea on how to keep chains from tangling into spiked wheels. There's a lot of choices out there that you might be running, from the Furrow Cruiser to this type of Martin spike wheel that you see on this row unit. And one of the challenges that's always been there with drag chains is the tendency for them to flip up and tangle. With the same kit that we talked about before that has the short mounting point, we've added these extension brackets to the chain. And the beauty of these is it prevents the chain from tangling. The way we do that is the chain itself becomes the natural limiter. So as we lift this, eventually this chain tightens and won't allow this to get any closer to that closing wheel, which would cause it to tangle. I can lift all the way up on this and you can see even if I try to pull it in, it's going to stay clear. Still has the ability to flex in its working range, but now has a top limit that's going to keep it from tangling. So we get all the advantages we're looking for in a chain without having to compromise times where we're stopped and shut down, clearing out tangles.
When I saw our team come up with a simple solution of additional bracket added to the back of this row unit to keep this chain from getting tangled, I realized that this product needs to be a standalone. You know, I've rarely seen a planting condition where a drag chain didn't improve emergence and stand count.
So as we think about putting together a system to apply nitrogen with our planter, we know we needed the ability to carry more gallons than we have in the past. And here at 360, we wanted to think about the entire system and how we make it simple so that you can bring the value of nitrogen on the planter into your operation without having to search out other options that are going to complete that entire system. So as we think about carrying more gallons, we thought about tractor tanks, and we never really saw a set out there that we liked. So we jumped in ourselves and took the approach of designing a set of tanks that would give you the ability to carry the gallons you're going to need. So the set you see on this tractor behind me carries 700 gallons. And we've taken the approach of carrying it over the front duals, which gives us several advantages. For one, we're able to keep the width inside the width of the duals themselves. So when it comes to transporting this system down the field, you don't have the added risk of a wider transport than you would have in the past. We've also thought about the balance of carrying extra weight. We know that weight on a tractor can be a big deal when it comes to steering and being able to manage our soil compaction. So spreading that weight out over the front and rear axles was important. As you can see with this tank stretched out over this axle, we've shifted more weight to the rear than you would ever see with a front elliptical that would be mounted where I'm standing. So we've designed these 700-gallon tanks to have 350 on each side. This is a solid molded poly tank, as you can see here, and we've plumbed it in a really simple way. There's a valve under each tank that allows us to control how much is filling when you're in the filling operation and maybe unbalanced from either side. We can adjust for that with the valve underneath. We have a 3-inch fill line here on the front that gives you the ability to fill from the ditch bank on this side or being able to fill from the rear, as well as supply the planter with this 2-inch line. Have the ability to adjust that as well. And then another valve on the opposite side to be able to control where you're bringing product from on your system. So as we looked at designing larger tanks to go on tractors, transport width was one of the things that we kept in mind. And we've designed this tank in a way that it stays inside the width of the duals of the tractor itself. So there's no added width when you're going down the road in transport mode. The safety of operating with these tanks is exactly what you've been used to in the past. So we've expanded the models that we're offering with 360 Bullet. Each one is a 14-inch wide wing, so they all consistently fracture soil from tip to tip. But the differences are in how they're made and where they fit best in the regions across the country. Here we have the HD point that we've offered in the past, and this continues to be available for 1.5-inch shanks and Landau. It's a fabricated point that does a great job with both rocks and wear. So here in the middle we have the HW point, or the high wear point. It's a solid chrome casting that's been designed with wear in mind. So any kind of conditions you're running in where wear is really critical, the HW point is a really good choice. We've designed it to work in the lower 2/3 of the corn belt. It can handle some impacts, but we've really designed it to stand up really well to any kind of wear conditions. And on the left here, we have the HD Plus, the heavy duty plus point. It's a steel casting with chrome that's bonded to the wear surfaces to give us great wear protection. We've also designed this point with rocks in mind. So those heavy impact loads, and anytime we're seeing a lot of rocks, this HD Plus is a tremendous point to use. So whether it's the HD Plus, the HW, or the HD, these points are a great fit no matter your conditions.
So Glide is one of the exciting new 6 projects that we introduced to you last summer. And it all come to be with the success that we've had with undercover and wide drop in mid-season and even late season crops. So we're in there protecting that yield by make sure our disease package is right, and we're in taller crops with undercover. Same way with wide drop. If you're in closer to pollination with a late application of N, there was always a challenge on the applicator driver saying, how do we make this easier? So with excitement last year, we introduced you to Glide, and it's all about simplicity. So Tim, talk us through some of the features and talk a little bit about the success we've had this year all over the nation with the operators that were using it.
You bet. So the new challenge that's been introduced for the boom height control systems, when we add a drop like this, we now care about the height from the boom to the ground. The boom height sensor that you have on your sprayer today does a pretty good job of telling you the height between the boom and the top of the crop canopy. But as we add wide drop, now we care about where the height of the ground is compared to where the boom is running, and so we will need to measure off of the base itself. So the 360 Glide sensor is added to any of the wide drop bases that are already on the market, and you're able to measure with this tactile feeler the actual height off the ground. And so we're able to come along as this drop is running and know what's the height from this point to where the ground is running. And the simplicity of this system has been built in a way that you're able to plug this sensor in to the exact same place you'd plug in the current sensor on your boom. And the team here at 360 has done the work in software to convert this measurement to the exact same type of message that your system expects today. So in the cab, your controller is going to continue to operate like it has before, and your settings are going to be very similar, and the ability to run the system is going to be the same as what you're used to today. But now with the advantage of knowing exactly what this height is, so we can control this boom for wide drop versus spraying or some other operation. We've also added the ability with the breakaway sensor to detect when this drop may have contacted any kind of obstacle. At that point, when it breaks away, we now detect this with a couple of sensors up here that allow us to know that this measurement is no longer ready to be used. As soon as this drop re-engages, we now start to look at the sensor again, and we'll start to send new measurements up to your controller to adjust the height of the boom. We need to do that because otherwise when we were broken away, the boom would want to lower. And we actually know that because we're probably in contact with some kind of obstacle, we need to raise that boom, clear that obstacle, and reset. So it's a very simple system that plugs in just where you would before and now gives you the height measurement that you care about when you're running your wide drop.
So as a companion to our boom height here of Glide, we also introduced last summer a steering system called Guide. And so let's move to the front of the sprayer and take a look at how simple this system is to operate. The 360 Guide is designed to be very, very simple. And I think my own team saw that firsthand this season. We were running 2 sprayers with the tactical wands that you see here on the 360 Guide. Tim, why don't you just go through and talk about, yes, we're a lower cost option, but we didn't sacrifice any accuracy. So let's talk about how this system actually works on the front of these different sprayers.
So we know there's a tremendous amount of value in late season nitrogen, and it's our goal to make the process of wide dropping easier and easier. That's why we've developed both the boom height control system Glide and our steering system Guide. And as we're talking specifically about the steering system, we've wanted to make it as simple as possible to operate. So the approach we've taken is to use a sensor like we see in the center of this machine that measures the actual location of the plants and use that to correct the GPS control system you already have in your cab. If you think about RTK as a GPS correction, you could think of this sensor as a plant-based correction for this GPS controller you have today. So you're still going to operate with an AB line in your field, but what's new is our system's going to intercept the GPS that's on your sprayer, and we're going to take that position and shift it based on the measurements we're getting on where your sprayer is when it comes to the row of plants, and being able to measure how far off the center line you are. We'll then take that position, send it onto your controller after we've adjusted for the air that's we're seeing down here on this sensor. And now your sprayer is going to steer to correct itself and come back to the center of the row. So we're using a set of tactile wands, as you can see here. They're going to bend back and shift in position as the row of corn is going to shift back and forth as you're driving down through the field. And so at that point, we're going to take that measurement, convert that into a GPS message, and send that up to your controller. We also have the ability to break away. In the case of any kind of obstacle you might hit, we'll go ahead and allow this sensor to snap back and come back and reset. So it's a very flexible system, very easy to use because it's the same controller you're used to today. In your cab, that same user interface is used in addition to one iPad that we add that allows you to control our system.
I think, Tim, for our guys, the main thing was operator fatigue. Just the simplicity of our two sprayers running and the kind of acres we put through on wide drop and undercover on fungicide and corn, it made quite a difference. Not only that, but all of us have seen sprayer damage, and we know what it takes. And as you go in the afternoon after lunch, sometimes it's hard, especially in an ocean of green and tall corn, to know exactly where you're at. So the 360 guide made quite a difference. I look forward to you having a chance to run it. I think without question, Sprint really came out of the wild and crazy category when it comes to efficiency and keeping planters rolling. I'm pretty passionate about time wasted during the planting season. And it's hard for me to see really fine-tuned planters sitting on the road bank waiting to load nitrogen and starter. And so when Sprint come into concept, it was all about how do we keep all this planter running and never stopping. And it's about gaining anywhere from 27 to 30% efficiency. And man, did we hit a home run. We had 4 different planters in 2 different states running with the Sprint systems. My own farm team saw the efficiency on day 1. They had a little bit of hesitation. They took Sprint out. Over 7 fields and over 400 acres were run that day. And from that time on, the planters and the Sprint were always together. Yes, we're going to have some changes, some updates, but remember, Sprint's all about 300-gallon come to you, with a 2-inch pump on the back that's forcing this liquid up with a very simple connection. And so from inside the cab or in an open gator, you're able to transfer 300-gallon in less than 3 minutes, and the planters just continue to roll. Dust was not a problem. We have the catch mitts and the funnels on either side of the planter. In our own operation, we had an open gator and the air-conditioned gator, and they both ran every day this spring. So we had a very limited number in the spring of 18 last year, but this year we're opening it up. And so I look forward to you having a chance to experience Sprint on your operation.